They thought he wouldn't wake up. They thought the fall would silence him forever. But when the man they tried to erase opened his eyes, he remembered every name, every lie, every betrayal. If you've ever wondered what happens when power meets purpose and betrayal meets a man who refuses to die, keep reading. This isn't just a comeback story. This is a reckoning. They said it was a tragic accident, a mechanical failure, a malfunction. The official report called it an unfortunate event involving a private helicopter over Biscayne Bay, but Dorian Westbrook knew better. Because when the blade stopped spinning, when gravity betrayed him and glass exploded like fire through the sky, he didn't hear panic. He heard silence. A silence that wasn't fear, it was calculation. The room was dim, sterile, and eerily quiet. A slow, steady beep was the only rhythm in the presidential suite of New Manhattan Medical Tower. Dorian's chest rose and fell in perfect time with the machine's breath. 43 years old, founder and CEO of Westbrook Holdings, a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire changing the way underprivileged communities lived. He'd built solar-powered homes in food deserts. He'd fought zoning boards in all-white counties. He'd stared down senators in closed-door meetings, and now he was lying still beneath a thin white sheet, looking like death had already signed the deed. At least, that's what they wanted to believe. Day 3, post-crash. He woke up, but he didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't twitch, didn't speak. Because Dorian Westbrook had survived much worse than a fall from the sky. He'd survived being underestimated. And now he was about to turn their betrayal into his battleground. Behind the one-way glass door, voices echoed like ghosts. "You need to be patient," said a man, calm, calculated. Elliot Westbrook, his half-brother, COO of Westbrook Holdings, raised in the same house, different mothers. Dorian had pulled him up through the ranks, given him a seat at the table. And now he was waiting like a vulture for the meat to rot. "Patient," another voice replied, this one colder, sharper, female. Tasha, Dorian's wife. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of elegant galas, of public unity, 7 years of knowing how to kiss him in front of shareholders and gut him in silence. The board is growing restless. The incapacitation clause activates at 21 days. If he doesn't wake up soon, we lose our window. She paused. "I won't let everything slip away, not after what I've sacrificed." Elliot's voice lowered to a whisper, but Dorian heard every word. "We already have the report drafted. Mercer will sign off. He's being paid well to say Dorian's brain activity is declining. Permanent vegetative state." Tasha's heels clicked across the tile floor. "And his lawyer? Harper Ellis is a pit bull, but I've got a call scheduled with the state bar. A few ethical concerns were discovered in her old files. Lie, manipulate, erase. It was all so damn professional." Behind his still eyelids, Dorian felt his pulse surge. Tasha, the woman who had once whispered, "Don't let them steal your fire, baby." Now she was planning to bury him beneath silence and signatures. Door to the suite hissed open with a soft breath. Different steps this time, lighter, controlled, rhythmic. "Good evening, Mr. Westbrook," said a calm, clear voice. No fake cheeriness, no performance, just real. "My name's Camille. I'm your new night nurse." He caught the scent of lavender. She moved with a confidence that didn't match the nervous stiffness of the others. No small talk, no fluff. "Vitals are steady," she said, jotting notes. Then came the chair, a soft squeak. She sat down beside him. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said, her voice dropping to something private, "but I need to tell you something." He kept his breathing even, still, controlled. "I shouldn't be here. I was hired 3 days ago. They said the last nurse quit." A pause. "But last night I reviewed your charts. and something's off. Way off. She leaned closer. I'm not just a nurse, Mr. Westbrook. I'm a certified forensic neurologist. And the levels of sedation you're under, they're not just high, they're criminal. You're being kept under intentionally. The reflex reports have been altered. Someone is keeping you in a coma. Dorian's fingers twitched, just once. But Camille didn't notice. I don't know who's behind it or why, she said. But I'll find out, I promise. She stood, adjusted the IV bag. I'm reducing your sedation gradually. Just enough. Within a few days, your body might start responding on its own. She moved toward the monitors. The door opened again. Dr. Mercer. The man writing his death sentence. Camille didn't flinch. Just doing the rounds, doctor. Thanks, nurse, Mercer replied coolly. I'll take it from here. When the door finally closed, Dorian exhaled. Slow, silent, sharp. He wasn't alone. In a war of polished betrayal and forged loyalty, a stranger had chosen to stand beside him. And what Tasha didn't know was this. Her betrayal didn't kill him. It woke up something far more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose and everything to take back. Camille Rivers had worked in 12 hospitals, 2 war zones, and 1 federal investigative unit, but never in a place so silent, so sterilized, so fake. Everything in Dorian Westbrook's suite gleamed. Polished wood, brushed gold fixtures, state-of-the-art vitals monitor that hummed like a lullaby. But beneath the perfect symmetry of money and influence, Camille felt it. The rot. She had seen men sedated into silence before, sometimes by nature, sometimes by malice, and everything in her screamed, this wasn't nature. It started with a chart. Day 1 on the job, she reviewed his dosage logs and frowned. Sedation level 6.8 micrograms/kg/HR. For a man with no traumatic brain swelling, that was twice the safe threshold. And the neuroreflex tests? All pre-filled. No raw EEG data, no physician countersign. On day 2, she slipped into the server and checked the bedside camera logs. 6 gaps, all during night hours, no reason given. By day 3, she knew. Someone wasn't just keeping Dorian unconscious. Someone was burying him alive. Tonight, she entered his suite with quiet purpose. His body lay still, chest rising and falling like clockwork. But it was the stillness that unnerved her most, not the stillness of damage, the stillness of control. Evening again, Mr. Westbrook, she whispered. She checked his pulse, his pupils, adjusted his IV flow. Then she sat down, and this time, she spoke from the scar. My father was in the ICU for 36 days, she said softly, her voice trembling beneath its calm surface. Motorcycle crash. He survived the impact. What he didn't survive was the protocol. She swallowed hard. They missed a bleed on day 2. By the time I noticed, it was too late. They lied to my mother. They covered it up, called it a system failure. Her hands curled into fists. That's when I stopped believing in the system and started fighting it. She looked at Dorian's still face. I think someone's trying to erase you too. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely audible. I started reducing your sedation last night. Just a fraction. I've replaced the logs with falsified entries. It's not my proudest work, but it'll hold. If your brain's still in there, you'll feel the difference tonight. She paused. I need to know you're in there, Dorian. If you can hear me, just something. And then, twitch. It was almost imperceptible. The tiniest motion of his right pinky. Not a spasm, not a reflex, a signal. Camille's breath caught. She stepped back, startled, then leaned in, her eyes wide. Was that you? The finger twitched again. A sob built in her throat, but she swallowed it down. She wasn't here to fall apart. You're conscious. No question now, no doubt, he was awake. They worked quickly, Using a basic code she had taught patients in locked-in states, Camille had Dorian communicate by blinking. 1 blink equals yes, 2 equals no, 3 equals repeat. Within hours, they established a baseline. 2 nights later, she brought in laminated cards with the alphabet. Letter by letter, blink by blink, he spelled. T-A-S-H-A, she blinked. Your wife? 1. Blink. T-R-I-E-D, T-O-K-I-L-M-E. Camille felt her blood chill. She kept her voice low. You're sure? 1 blink. She steadied herself. Why? More blinking. Slower this time. I-N-H-E-R-I-T-E-N-C-E-O-I-N-S. The room felt colder now. E-L-I-O-T-I-H-E-L-P-I-N-G. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but fury. She had walked into this suite thinking she'd protect a patient. Now she was standing in the middle of a battlefield. The next night, Camille snuck in a secure burner phone and placed a scrambled call. I need a second opinion, she said. No equipment, no records, just you. The voice on the other end paused, then send location. 2 hours later, Dr. Valerie Chan, forensic neurologist and Camille's former mentor, slipped through the side door in surgical scrubs and sneakers. She examined Dorian without touching any connected equipment. Strictly manual testing, pupils, reflexes, minor motor feedback. Finally, she looked up and said, This man is being chemically suppressed, no doubt. Camille exhaled. I'm going to need help, she said. Dr. Chan nodded. Then we start tonight. As dawn crept over the Hudson River, Camille stood beside Dorian and whispered, You trusted the wrong woman, but now the right one is here. She didn't mean it as anything more than a promise. But in that moment, when his index finger tapped once on the bed rail, something passed between them. A pact. Unspoken. Unbreakable. The next 48 hours unfolded like a war fought in whispers. Each night, Camille Rivers entered the suite not as a nurse, but as an operative. Her crisp uniform was her armor. Her chart clipboard hid classified intel, and the man lying in that hospital bed, eyes closed, body still, was no longer just a patient. He was a survivor, a witness, and he was talking. 1 blink at a time. They perfected their code. Blink once, yes. Blink twice, no. 3 times, repeat. Then came the laminated alphabet cards. Camille would hold them up, row by row, until his eye flicked in response. It was slow, painfully slow, but every word they spelled together was a strike against the silence. On the second night, he blinked out a name, E-L-I-O-T, followed by I-N-O-N-I-T. Camille's stomach twisted. He's helping Tasha? 1 blink. She felt a wave of heat crawl up her spine. How long? The response took 10 minutes to spell. Y-E-A-R-S-T-R-U-S-T-A-D-H-I-M. Camille sat beside him, silence thick between them. Dorian blinked slowly, deliberately. F-A-M-I-O-Y. Camille looked away, her voice soft. Family doesn't always mean safety. He blinked once, then again, then 3 times. Camille smiled sadly. Yeah, I'll repeat that too. Later that night, she opened a hidden recording app on her phone and slipped it into her scrubs pocket. Just after 2:00 a.m., she stepped into the hallway with a stack of fabricated patient charts and walked toward the staff lounge, where she knew 2 people would be waiting, Dr. Chad Mercer and Elliot Westbrook. She didn't knock, just stood silently in the hallway, out of their line of sight, letting the phone record. Elliot's voice was low but arrogant. The board votes in 5 days. We need Mercer's final report stating irreversible brain trauma. No recovery. Dr. Mercer sounded nervous. The nurse. Camille. She's been reviewing old records. She's not just a nurse. Elliot hissed. She's a contractor. Disposable. If she becomes a problem, she's gone. Camille's grip tightened on the clipboard. They were confident. Too confident. Perfect. Back in the suite, Dorian blinked rapidly as she returned. I've got you, she whispered, touching his shoulder. They're falling into their own trap. He blinked out his next words slowly. Needharper. She narrowed her eyes. Your attorney? One blink. She's in trouble. Tasha and Elliot are trying to disbar her. And blink again. I'll reach out, Camille whispered, but quietly. The next evening, Dorian struggled through his slowest message yet. It took nearly half an hour. Camille held the alphabet cards with trembling fingers as he spelled it out. THEREWASAPROEG. Her brow furrowed. What kind of project? Horizon, she repeated it back. Horizon? He blinked once. CLEAN. ENERGYY. HOMES. LOWINCOM. A long pause. TASHASAID. ATWASA. ATATWASA. Ileonic, Tasha, didn't just want his fortune. She wanted to kill the mission. Tasha didn't just want his fortune. She wanted to kill the legacy. Camille sat back, her voice raw. I don't understand people like that. You build something that matters, and they just want to strip it for parts. Dorian blinked once, then added, YOUDONOTSTRIPWHATYOUDONOTHTRIPWHART. She smiled. No, you protect it, even when it's not yours to protect. Dorian blinked, then paused, then blinked again. She held her breath. What is it? His eye followed her hand. She was still holding his wrist, unconsciously tracing her thumb over the edge of his skin. Camille blinked and let go. She cleared her throat. We don't have time for feelings, Mr. Westbrook. He blinked once. She gave a soft laugh, standing. I'll pretend that was a yes. Later that night, she stood at the window of the suite, staring at the glittering skyline. Her phone buzzed. A text. From a blocked number. Don't interfere. This is bigger than you. No name. No context. But Camille knew the game. She turned back toward the man in the bed. I'm in now, she whispered. Too deep to walk away. As if in response, Dorian's finger moved. Once. Then twice. Then one more time. She turned off the lights and sat beside him in the dark. They think you're dying, Dorian, she murmured. Just like today. I was wondering if we should... She cracked her eyes a second time, pushing her hair to the side. She said a single word, then two more. They think you're dying, Dorian, she murmured. Just like today. I was wondering if we should... She cracked her eyes. I think you're dying, Dorian, she murmured. Just like you're ever dying, Dorian, she murmured. She said to just right, but you're just loading your weapon. And with her beside him, he wasn't fighting alone anymore. Camille closed the blinds tighter that night, not to hide from the light, but to protect the fire. Dorian Westbrook was no longer still. The man who had once been nothing but breath and heartbeat on a monitor was coming back. Not loud, not fast, but with precision, like a soldier rising in the dark, remembering every scar he'd ever earned. He flexed his right hand for 3 seconds, then released. Again and again, Camille counted silently. fingers on his pulse. "You've gained more control," she whispered. "You've get my control," she whispered. "To see him coming." Dorian blinked once. She adjusted his pillows, lowering his bed just slightly. "Tonight we test your voice box. Just hum. Doesn't need to be a sound, just vibration." She placed her fingers gently at the base of his throat, felt nothing. "Try again," she murmured, and then a flicker, a low tremor, so faint it might have been imagined. But Camille had trained with trauma survivors. She knew the language of fragile victories. "That's it," she said softly. "We're climbing now." Dr. Valerie Chan returned after midnight, dressed in casual clothes, hair tucked under a beanie, moving like a ghost. "I brought equipment. Minimal, non-traceable," she said. "Which is enough to prove active recovery without triggering their internal logs." She ran the portable EEG over Dorian's temples, nodding at the spikes. "Cognitive activity is off the charts for someone comatose." "They are finished." Camille looked over at Dorian. Time to flip the script. The next morning, Camille entered the suite and found a letter slipped under the door. No signature, no greeting. "You think you're clever. You're not the first nurse to ask questions. You won't be the last to disappear." She crumpled the paper slowly. Dorian blinked once. "You okay?" "I'm not scared of cowards," she said through clenched teeth. "I was raised by a woman who ironed clothes for $5 a basket and taught me how to stand when the world wanted me kneeling." She looked directly at him. "You're not the only one with fire, Mr. Westbrook." By evening, Harper Ellis had been located. Camille, under a fake name, sent encrypted documentation to Harper's private server. Falsified reports, redacted blood work and recordings. The response came fast. "Camille, I don't know who you are, but I believe you. And if Dorian's really alive in there, then hell is about to be very crowded." Camille read the message aloud. Dorian blinked once, slowly. A hint of a smile played at the corner of his mouth. That night, she pulled up a chair and sat beside him in the dark, their faces lit only by the soft green glow of the heart monitor. "You know," she said, voice low, "I didn't expect to care." He blinked, waiting. "I was supposed to come in, collect evidence, and go. That's what I've always done. Stay detached, cold, professional." She paused. "But then I saw how they spoke about you, like you were just a name on a will. A vote to override, a vault to be cracked." Her voice caught. "And then I saw you blink, saw you fight from inside your own cage. And She stopped, inhaled. "I haven't felt this kind of purpose in years." Dorian blinked. "THANKYOU." Her throat tightened. "Don't thank me, just come back." Then he did something he hadn't done before. His hand shifted. Not a twitch, a movement. His index finger reached slowly toward hers. Camille hesitated, then took it, held it. A long silence followed. Not clinical, not strategic, just human. The next morning, the boardroom at Westbrook Holdings buzzed with tension. Tasha Westbrook arrived in a sleek navy dress, face polished like stone. Elliot stood beside her, his smile practiced. "The neurologist's final report is ready," he announced. "We'll submit it at the emergency vote on Thursday." Naomi Sinclair, the only black woman on the board and Dorian's longest-serving partner, narrowed her eyes. "Where is Dr. Mercer? Why didn't he present it himself?" "He's been called away," Elliot said quickly. "But I assure you, his findings are clear." Naomi cut him off. "He also cleared Dorian for full health 2 weeks before the crash," Tasha interjected smoothly. "Naomi, I know this is hard. We all loved Dorian, but we must accept reality." Naomi stared at her coldly. "I buried my husband. I know what death looks like. You, on the other hand, look ready to decorate. Back at the clinic, Camille stared at the newest scan from Dr. Chan. You're not just conscious, Dorian, Valerie said. You're recovering faster than any patient I've ever seen. Camille turned to him. Are you ready? Dorian blinked once, then again, then opened his eyes fully for the first time. Camille gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Dorian. His voice was cracked, buried beneath weeks of silence, but it came. Let's finish this. The boardroom at Westbrook Holdings had never been this silent. It wasn't grief, it was greed, holding its breath. 12 members in tailored suits sat around a polished mahogany table, crystal water glasses, stamped agenda packets. Behind the projection screen, a still image of Dorian Westbrook's brain scan flickered in soft blue. But Dorian wasn't there. Not yet. Elliot stood at the head of the table, hands folded like a man about to be crowned. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice honeyed. The final medical report from Dr. Mercer is clear. My brother has suffered irreversible neurological damage. His condition will not improve. Tasha Westbrook sat poised beside him, her black dress impeccable. Her face was painted with grief, but not a single tear had fallen, not in 18 days. For the sake of our investors, our company, and our legacy, Elliot continued, we must activate the incapacitation clause and transfer executive power. He paused, basking in the moment. That's when Naomi Sinclair raised her hand. I have one final question, Elliot smiled politely. Of course, Naomi. She leaned forward. Why isn't Dr. Mercer here to answer questions about his report? Elliot blinked. So did Tasha. He was called away on a medical emergency, Tasha answered too quickly. Convenient, Naomi murmured, glancing at the door. And then the door opened. At first, no one looked, just another assistant surely, until they heard the sound, a cane tapping against the floor. Heads turned and gasps erupted, because there he was, Dorian Westbrook, standing in the doorway, tall, pale, dressed in a navy mogul tailored suit that matched the fire in his eyes, a slight tremor in his left leg, but otherwise impossibly alive. The room froze. Tasha's water glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Elliot's lips parted, blood draining from his face. That's impossible. Dorian walked in slowly, Camille and Dr. Valerie Chan at his side. Harper Ellis followed close behind, carrying a black briefcase like it held the weight of a gavel. No, Dorian said, voice low but razor sharp. What's impossible is how easily you thought I would die. He reached the head of the table, his seat, paused and turned toward the stunned board. Before you vote, I believe you deserve the full story. Harper stepped forward and opened the briefcase. Exhibit A, she said, placing a stack of documents on the table. Bank records showing offshore payments from a shell company controlled by Elliot Westbrook to Dr. Chad Mercer, starting 3 days before Dorian's accident. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Exhibit B, Valerie added, holding up a portable screen. An independent medical evaluation signed by 3 certified neurologists, including myself, proving that Mr. Westbrook was kept in an artificially sedated state without medical justification. Tasha tried to stand. This is ridiculous. Dorian's voice cut through her like frost. Sit down. She froze. Exhibit C, Camille said, tapping a tablet. A video played. Elliot's voice filled the room. Keep him sedated until the vote. Then we can let nature take its course. Gasps. Whispers. Chairs shifting. Audio taken from the hospital hallway, Camille explained, calm as a surgeon. And yes, the voice print has been verified. Elliot stood now, panicked. This is a setup. Dorian turned to him, gaze like steel. You know what fascinates me, Elliot. Not that you betrayed me, I expected that eventually, but that you thought I wouldn't see it coming. He looked at Tasha. Her face was pale, mascara smudged. "And you?" he said, softer now, more dangerous. "You wore my ring, slept in my bed, promised to protect what we built. I loved you," she choked. "No," Dorian said. "You loved the version of me that was quiet, controlled, vulnerable." He stepped closer. "You tried to erase me, but I remembered everything." Security entered quietly. The head of security looked to Dorian. "Sir, the authorities are in the lobby." He nodded. "Escort them out." Elliot shouted. "You don't understand. The Horizon project would destroy our highest margin contracts. The investors will flee." "They already voted," Dorian interrupted. Naomi smiled as she pulled a folder from her purse. The Horizon expansion was approved last night in a closed investor meeting. 72% in favor. Dorian looked at the board. "I came back to finish what I started. Not just a company, but a movement." Tasha screamed as security grabbed her arms. "This isn't over. You owe me, Dorian. I gave you everything." "No," he said coldly. "You took everything and still wanted more." As they were dragged away, Dorian finally sat in his chair. His hands trembled slightly, but his spine remained unshaken. He looked to Camille, who stood quietly in the back. Their eyes met, not as nurse and patient, not as savior and saved, but as witnesses to each other's strength. And for the first time since the moment his world fell from the sky, Dorian Westbrook exhaled. 6 months later, the city's skyline looked different, not because the buildings had changed, but because he had. Dorian Westbrook stood in front of the glass walls of his new office, watching dawn crawl over the horizon. The solar panels installed atop every Horizon home sparkled like they had something to say. Like they had survived something too. The world had moved on, but he hadn't forgotten. Tasha Westbrook was serving 8 years in a federal prison in upstate New York. Elliot got 15. Dr. Mercer lost his license and was awaiting trial for attempted medical homicide. Dorian hadn't attended the sentencing hearings. He didn't need to. Justice had already been served, in truth and in memory, because nothing would ever erase the way it felt to lie helpless while people you once trusted whispered your death into motion, and nothing would ever compare to the sound of Camille's voice in that darkness. The elevator pinged. Camille Rivers stepped into the office, holding a tablet and 2 coffees. "You're early," Dorian said without turning. "You're predictable," she replied, handing him the drink. "Hazelnut, no sugar." He took it with a nod, their fingers brushing. A quiet moment passed between them. Familiar now, comfortable, safe. Camille set the tablet on his desk. "The first Horizon Home School is live. Energy bills down by 81%. Teachers crying on local news. Investors grinning on CNN." Dorian smiled faintly. "Told you, doing good pays off. You didn't have to prove it by almost dying." He turned to her then, serious, steady. "No, I didn't. But it taught me the difference between people who clap for you when you win and people who fight for you when you're silent." Camille looked away, her voice quiet. "You don't owe me anything." He took a step closer. "I don't owe, but I remember." Later that morning, Naomi Sinclair arrived with Harper Ellis, carrying binders marked Reynolds Ellis Foundation. "The non-profit arm is ready," Harper said, sliding the documents across the table. 30% of Horizon Trust profits will fund patient rights, hospital camera monitoring, and whistleblower protection in ICUs nationwide. Camille blinked. "Wait, what?" Naomi grinned. "It's named after you." Camille froze. "What?" Dorian folded his hands. "You saved my life. Your name deserves to save more." She opened the folder slowly. The Rivers Initiative, her name, on something built to protect people like him, like her father, like everyone who never got a second chance. Her throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." Dorian's voice softened. You already said it. The first night you sat beside me, when you thought no one was listening. That evening they walked through the Horizon Research Center together. Young engineers from South Bronx, East Detroit, and Oakland worked on smart housing grids and accessible solar tech. A girl no older than 15 showed Camille a prototype for an energy-sharing app for low-income neighborhoods. Dorian watched her laugh, watched her glow, and felt something shift deep in his chest. He wasn't used to warmth. He had built his life behind armor. But Camille had walked in through the one crack he'd never meant to show. In the main lobby, a glass wall had been engraved with a quote, "True strength isn't how loud you roar, but how deeply you stand in silence when the world wants you gone." Camille paused. She whispered, "That's what I told you." He nodded, and I never forgot. A long silence lingered, not uncomfortable, just waiting. Then Dorian said softly, "Do you ever think about what comes after survival?" Camille looked at him. "Sometimes, but survival changes you." He met her gaze. "Maybe it shows you who you're meant to be." With a breath caught in her chest. Not from fear, from truth. She didn't smile. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward and took his hand. No grand declarations, no movie-ending kiss, just two souls who had walked through fire and found one another in the smoke. That night, Dorian stood on the rooftop of the Horizon campus, looking out over the lights of a city that once tried to bury him. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't broken. He was reborn, not because he had survived, but because he'd chosen what to do with the ashes. Behind him, Camille joined him at the railing. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was earned.